The anointed ones, welcome. Yes, your name, typed into a search bar by the man who sends rockets into space. Not because he's a fan, not because he's curious, but because even minds obsessed with the future are trying to understand the force that walked into the present and shifted it. You moved in silence while they chased clout. You rose without asking for eyes. You healed wounds that weren't even yours to carry, without applause, without recognition. That makes you the most dangerous person in any room. The one they didn't see coming and still can't fully define. Let me give you something real. The most venomous creatures in nature don't roar. They don't need to. They exist. And that alone changes the environment. They strike once, cleanly, and history adjusts itself around them. That's you, the underestimated anomaly, the one they thought they buried, never realizing you were rooting, getting deeper, getting focused, getting quietly more lethal. And now, you're not just surviving, you're strategizing. You're no longer reacting, you're orchestrating. And the world? The world is catching up. Even the powerful, the ones who thought they were too high to ever look down, even they are searching your name now. The roles have flipped. The game is yours. What about your detractors? Since they know that once you receive what you really deserve, it's checkmate. They're running laps like it's the Olympics, gasping for oxygen and hoping the universe doesn't give it to you. So fasten your seatbelts, because in this video, we're going to reveal why no one, I repeat, no one, has ever been as deadly as you, and why your opponents are acting as if they've seen a ghost. Because they did, spiritually. Let's get started. First of all, you're risky since you don't follow the control algorithm. Because you don't follow the rules that society has set for you. You are hazardous. You don't move like the typical person who need continual affirmation, attention, or approval from others in order to feel alive. You are not subject to peer pressure, trends, or fictitious regulations created by insecure individuals in powerful positions. You are unpredictable only because you think, feel, and act differently than the algorithm. To be unpredictable is to be unmanageable and out of control. For those who base their authority on manipulation, it is scary. The majority of individuals are pre-programmed to respond in certain ways. They get agitated. When pressed, they fold. To blend in, they adapt. However, you changed the way you think. They attempted to download the code into you, but you erased it. You questioned your education. The falsehoods were unlearned by you. You now react based on your own internal guidance system. Not desperation, not guilt, nor fear. You don't move for show. You move with intention. That poses a danger to a world that depends on you being tiny in order to maintain order. Your intentionality is what makes others fear you, not your loudness or aggression. You consider your words before speaking. Not every step is explained by you. You're not sharing your next plan with the world online. You feel the change as you move. That is the beginning of spiritual battle. Being genuinely dangerous is being sovereign without being loud or furious. The crazy aspect is that you weren't born this way. Through suffering, betrayal, loneliness, and contemplation, you got to be this way. You did your own research. When shortcuts were available, you chose the difficult path. You can now see the true nature of the game. The folks who used to undervalue you are now uneasy around you because of this. You're rewriting the board instead of playing checkers with them. They are terrified because you are operating on a signal that they are unable to track. Second, you stand for everything they attempted to destroy and succeeded. You are a live example of how destruction did not work on you, which makes you dangerous. You weren't meant to remain upright. The people who detested you the most didn't think you would live, much less ascend. They sought to damage your reputation, put pressure on your name, betrayed your trust, and placed you in circumstances that were designed to destroy your mental and emotional well-being. They were attempting to destroy you, not just harm you. However, what about the wild part? You made it through everything, and now they're punishing you with your very life because they are constantly reminded that nothing they have done has worked. They can't bear to look at you. You are tangible proof that their attempts were unsuccessful. It wasn't meant for you to develop in that mess. That was not meant to be a source of strength for you. It was not intended for you to become clear in that perplexity. And now you have developed, not merely survived. You transformed every injury into a tool, every betrayal into insight, and every defeat into knowledge. Those who never wanted you to find your power are afraid of that type of change. They are threatened by what you stand for, not by who you are. You are an unavoidable mirror for them. Everything they attempted to bury inside themselves is reflected in you. You are a reflection of the shame they deny, the jealousy they conceal behind false smiles, and the reality they flee. Everything they believe they got away with is exposed by your presence. You only need to continue to exist. You don't need to reveal them. It is the reason you are so dangerous. The fact is that they never detested the struggling version of you. Instead, they detested the idea that you may eventually come to terms with who you really are. They can't take it back now that you've done it. They are unable to control you. You can't be broken by them. You are more than simply a survivor. You pose a danger to all of the falsehoods they have spread about you, and they're running for just that reason. Third, you play the architect rather than the antagonist or the sufferer. Now that you're free of the desire to be seen in a certain manner, you're hazardous. Being seen as the decent person is not something you ask for. To show you're not the terrible guy, you don't defend yourself. Both jobs are out of your reach. You don't need their fear or pity. You entered a whole new persona. That of the architect, the one who builds without warning, moves without notice, and observes without response. Trying to change how other people see you is a waste of time. You used to overthink, overcompensate, and over-explain things to people who had already made up their minds. That was the old you. You no longer feel the need to be understood by those who stand to gain from misinterpreting you. You are unstoppable only because of it. Someone who has nothing left to prove cannot be manipulated. While they're still working to ruin your previous life, you're starting again, brick by brick. What about the wild part? You're including the suffering they inflicted into the plan. Each betrayal turned into a structural lesson. You learned how to patch the holes with each lie they told. They just gave you materials to strengthen your foundation each time they attempted to take you down. They are angry because of this. They're shaken because of this. You are no longer involved in the performance. You established your own kingdom after leaving their sentimental circus. Winning your peace is more important to you than winning fights, and they can't get to you now that you've located it. They are free to yell, disparage, or act like victims. You're too busy making something they can't comprehend because they lack the vision and discipline. You're creating your own future instead of responding to their mess. And what frightens them the most? You're acting without turning around. Power is that. Control is that. It is the reason you are so dangerous. Fourth, your presence makes those who don't have any guilt feel guilty. Most people avoid you because they find you threatening in a manner that is difficult to define. You don't go about yelling your truth, dragging names, or pointing fingers. Nevertheless, when you enter the room, individuals still feel vulnerable. It's because of your vibe, not because you said anything. Your presence has a unique impact. It upends the security they've established around their lies, the ego masks, the performative generosity, the false identities. When you are close by, everything begins to malfunction. Why? Because individuals who have given up on theirs get tense when you are genuine. It's not necessary to discuss the past. They didn't need to be reminded of what they did. Your development, luminosity, tranquility, and survival speak for you, and you are dangerous because of it. They still feel the heat even if you don't harbor any resentment. What they believed would break you, you have forgiven. They never even attempted to look at the spots you've mended. You changed into the version of yourself that makes their justifications seem weak. They now see who they will never be when they see you, not just you. The strain is of a spiritual kind. People who tell themselves they have no guilt are awakened by you. Although you didn't embarrass them, your progress makes them realize how stagnant they are. Although you didn't threaten them, their disarray is shown by your calm. Although your truth made their falsehoods seem loud, you did not degrade them. They draw away because of this. They chatter because of this. Because of this, they act as if you've changed. But in reality, you just outgrew their bullshit. They are fleeing from the version of themselves that they were made to confront in your presence, not from anything you have done. The more profound reality is that some individuals find it unbearable to see the light unless they are in charge of the switch. You turned into your own source. You're glowing today in ways others can't match. Fifth, you made a plan out of the trauma. What? You're untouchable now. You're dangerous because you're calculating, not because you're furious. You examined every detail of the worst things that life has to offer, including betrayals, losses, gaslighting, and backstabbing. They believed they were dismantling you, but you were planning every step they made. You were training your instincts, deciphering their strategies, and memorizing their patterns. You now know the game better than its creators, and what was intended to traumatize you became your education. They just taught you how to see through illusions, even if they believed they were laying traps. You experienced the sensation of phony love. You discovered that compassion may conceal trickery. You gained insight into the silent nature of passive hostility and the consequences of a phony apology. They continued to plant emotional landmines in the hopes that you would continue to step on them, but you stopped, heedlessly crossing the field. It was you who planted the plans. You now move with intention rather than reflex. You do not just appear any place. And there's a reason why you do it. Because of this, you are untouchable. You are now working from strategy rather than survival mode. Your judgment, not your feelings, determines what you do. You are 10 steps ahead because you've learned from experience to think like a danger without really being one, not because you're paranoid. Chaos can no longer capture you since you know how it moves. And they're freaking out now that you've stopped talking. They are curious in your knowledge, plans, and future plans. They are unable to pinpoint the change, but they can sense it. They don't hear tranquility there. That's the silence before the fallout. Since you no longer play with snakes, they are no longer able to control, bait, or rattle you. You learn from them, you grow out of them, and when needed, you move in a manner that makes sure they never forget how well they taught you. You own conflict zones. You are no longer traversing them. Sixth, you've mastered isolation, so you're resistant to banishment. You've transformed what was supposed to harm you into your greatest strength, solitude, which makes you dangerous. They believe that if you were isolated, you would be crushed. They believe that if you were pushed out, you would become anxious to be let back in. But you built rather than broke. You were sitting in quiet, rebuilding your spirit, while others were whispering, plotting, and excluding you. You accepted your loneliness. You confronted the aspects of yourself that they hoped you would never encounter. And your strength increased as you descended further. Isolation was something you mastered, not simply endured. You no longer need their validation, their groupthink approval, or their invites. You began seeing yourself instead of requesting to be noticed. You made a door for yourself that only alignment and truth can enter, and you stopped knocking on doors that went nowhere. That was unexpected. Exile, they believed, would keep you little. However, It did nothing more than provide you with room to grow without interference, noise, or distraction. Your seclusion is now your haven. It's power, not punishment. You're calm, stable, and anchored while they're chasing turmoil, attention, and power. Since you have discovered communication with something deeper, clarity, purpose, and divine direction, you no longer need the mob. And they who previously attempted to banish you, you're shining in the same spot where they left you, which has them perplexed. They once thought that you would die as a result of their rejection, but now they see you flourish without their presence, their consent, or their access. You have previously experienced spiritual solitude, that agonizing calm when you believed no one was watching, where even God looks silent. So you are resistant to exile. And you continued. You continued to breathe. You continued to construct. And you made something indestructible out of that emptiness. Someone who no longer fears alone cannot be exiled. You resuscitate rather than just exist in isolation. You create empty spaces into transformative battlegrounds. The people who abandoned you are now attempting to understand how you transformed exile into advancement. Seventh, your instincts see in 4K what others overlook in obvious detail. Your intuition is surgical, which makes you dangerous. It pierces through charm, performance, loudness, and even well-meaning intentions. While most people are preoccupied with looks and words, you are focused on time, energy, and the things that are not being expressed. Your soul can detect frequencies that never reach the surface, so you don't need someone to confess. Even when treachery is being disguised as loyalty, you may still feel it. Under praises, you see jealousy. You sense falsehoods before they manifest. People are really uneasy with such type of image, particularly those who wear masks. Your spiritual intelligence is a danger in a society that has been conditioned to value reason over intuition. You're deciphering them, not simply reading them. A grin or a flattering tone won't influence you. Your soul listens for the truth underneath what others say. That's why you frighten people. They know you know, but they don't know what you know. And no encounter is more disturbing than that. You're not the kind of person who need evidence to support your judgment. You've been burnt too many times, seen too much, and lived too long to question the signs your spirit sends you. You have revelation, therefore, you don't need receipts. And when your energy changes, it's because you've already seen the conclusion of the narrative, not because you're speculating. You're the kind of person that makes manipulators doubt themselves and liars falter. You will just withdraw. You will not argue. You'll simply take a step back and not accuse. And that little change? People begin to fall apart at that point because your presence brings the reality to the fore. You're impervious to illusion, not because you reveal it. They want you to question your authority, so they label you as overly sensitive or paranoid. In actuality, however, they just aren't used to being seen while they're still attempting to perform. You're deadly because of it. With vision, not with weapons. Eighth, you broke the cords of generational curses employed by your adversaries. You're dangerous because you shattered the system that held generations together, in addition to healing yourself. That type of choice doesn't get acclaim. You examined the patterns that ran deep in your family line, the self-sabotage, the humiliation, the concealment, and the silence. And you concluded, it ends with me. Isolation, opposition, and sometimes even hostility from those who most need the healing accompany it. You were rewriting the dysfunctional DNA that kept your family in survival mode, not simply defending yourself. Curses are often inherited and passed down via tradition. Normalized anguish, inherited trauma, and pride-encased emotional numbness are the medals they wear. However, you have the guts to challenge the trends you saw. You didn't want to reiterate what you knew. You rejected the positions they attempted to put you in. The denial, the false strength, the "this is just how we are" mentality. and the quiet around abuse. You melted down all of the chains. You created something new out of that fire. Accountability, honesty, limits, and healing. However, the person who lifts the curse is not always praised. They will sometimes assault you for upsetting the illusion. You turned into the mirror that shows the price of remaining the same, the one they never requested. You were a danger to the comfort zones of generations, not merely a renegade. What about the irony? The same dysfunction from which you fled is often the source of your foes. They despise you because they were unable to liberate themselves. You bear bloodlines on your back because of honor rather than duty. You've already progressed beyond the need to justify your independence, even as others attempt to shackle you with guilt. You entered the flames and set the falsehoods on fire rather than fleeing from it.